would do such a thing.
I know. I don't care. All I do know is when they find that driver, I'm gonna tear him limb from limb.
So I guess Abigail's home.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where I will be doing another episode recap for today's Days of Our Lives. Today is August 14th, 2024. So we see Hattie and Leo, right? So Leo still has no clue that this is not really Marlena. He's just running with it. So they finished watching Drag Race and all that, and they're eating snacks and root beer. So, she's like, she really had fun watching it. She's never watched it before. So he's like, what do you mean we never watched it before? You watched it already with me at one point. So she's like, I don't remember all that, right? Was I drunk or whatever? So he was like, no, we watched it after we had sessions together and all that. So she's still under the impression that she probably was drunk or something for that to happen, because she really doesn't have any recollection of it. So, he's still puzzled as to how, Marlena is acting all weird and all that, but he has no clue at all. So she ended up leaving, right? And called him Lenny. So anyways, speaking of the real Marlena, so we see her at the hospital with John. So John has been cleared to go. He's all checked out after sustaining all those injuries back when he was in Missouri or Greece, right? So he's ready to leave the hospital, but then Marlena tells him about Chad and Jack actually bringing in Jane Doe to find out if she's really Abigail. So John is wondering if there's any connection between her and him and who actually held them captive in that room in Missouri. So she's like, probably ask her at another time, because this probably is overwhelming for her. And he's like, yeah, I understand, let Jack and the rest of the family have the time with her before I can really dig into that question, right? So then we go on to the next scene. So we see Kayla and Jack, Chad, and Jane Doe, right? So Kayla has the DNA results in hand, and then she proceeds to give Jane Doe, but she said, let Chad open it instead. So Chad opens it and begins reading, and Jack says, well, what is it? So he says that there's a strong percentage that this is really Abigail, and he looked at the markers and all that. So she's like, what does this really mean? So Kayla said that it is official. Jack and her are strongly related. So Jack is ecstatic, Chad is ecstatic. She's overwhelmed at this point. She's like, I can't believe this. So Jack proceeds to hug her, and then she's like, don't hug me. I really don't know you guys. You're still strange to me. So I'm like, you guys need to back up, give her a little space, because this is all new to her. She's really overwhelmed. So you guys need to understand that, right? You can't just bombard all this on her, right? She still needs to process this all. So Chad is just being overbearing, and he's like, she was willing to leave, and he's like, don't leave, come with me, and come to the Horton house to meet our kids. And she's like, we got kids? So he's like, yeah, we got 2. So she, let's go meet them. So she's like, how would that feel to introduce me to them? I'm a strange woman, I don't look like their mom, and that would be traumatic for them, traumatic for me. So this just, it couldn't work out. So he's like, all right, come with me to the Demare mansion. No pressure at all. Let's just go there for the night. And he tells Jack that, let the kids know that I'll be back the next day, right? So he's like, yeah, I'll handle that, right? So Kayla's like, if you ever need somebody to talk to, I'm your aunt, right? If you need me to talk to as an aunt / niece, or just doctor patient, I am here for you, right? So at this point, she got a call saying there was an emergency, right? So she just gets out of the office and leaves the 3 of them to talk, right? So Chad and Abigail, at this point, we're gonna call her, they leave, right? And Jack, it leaves Jack to really make that phone call to Jennifer, right? So we see Xander in the square, and he's getting really worried. He's not hearing nothing from Sarah. He's been calling her countless times, and it's just voicemail. And he's just getting worried, right? Because, the ferry is about to leave and they need to be on the last ferry to get out. And he's like, you know what? I just really wanted to have a special night with you and all of that. And it's okay if we go tomorrow, but I really wanted to spend that, our wedding night together, right? So he calls Maggie because Sarah went over actually to see if she can find the key to go to the cabin, right? As we know, Holly has that key, but again, she's over there to help her mom find it, right? So Xander calls Maggie and he's like, are you guys getting through? Like, where's Sarah? So she's like, Sarah hasn't come over yet. So he's like, Sarah left me a good while ago. Like, where could she be? So now he's just really frantic, right? So he's like, maybe, I shouldn't really worry a lot. Maybe something simple happens. So yeah. So we see Leo in the square, right? And he's sending a long, lengthy voicemail to Gwen talking about what happened with him and Hattie and, just recent events. And he's, apologetic for how he treated her. And, he's like, even if you don't answer, you don't call back, I just want to let you know how I'm feeling. So that was it really with him. So he sees Xander over there and he's like, what's happening with you? So he's like, I'm just really frantic. I'm just worried about Sarah, my wife. And he's like, oh, you guys really got married? So he's like, yeah, we did. He's like, I thought that was uprooted by your mom. So he's like, no, we decided to have something private and it went well. So he's like, no intruders this time. So he's like, no sign of Gwen. So he's like, nope, nothing at all. So, he's just there chatting with him for a bit. You know how Leo can chat, right? So he's there talking about their intimate life and that Sarah could put on a pound or two and all that, just trying to be rude, and all that. But Xander is like, no offense, you need to stop talking at this point, right? So he's like, I'm sorry I'm doing all that. So, I hope you guys work out. You're a good looking couple and blah, blah, blah. So, he went about his way, right? And he's like, if you don't really have the plans tonight, I'm always here. So he went off. And then Xander proceeds to look for Sarah at this point because he's like overly worried right now. So remember, we see Fiona, she is driving, Brady's in the back, and she's also under the influence, right? And she ran over Sarah. So she comes out, because she was trying to tell Brady that she ran over somebody. So she went out to look who the person was. So she was like, hey, can you hear me? And I'm like, she's on the floor. The person's on the floor. How are they going to hear you? You hit them off the road. So then she proceeds to take a deeper look, and it's Sarah. So she's like, oh my gosh. Look at it. You just hit your newly minted daughter-in-law. And she, instead of Fiona actually calling for help or the ambulance, something, she sits there and she starts panicking. She started, she doesn't try to call for help, right? Because Sarah could have really been sustaining some deep injuries right now. She could even be dead for this matter, right? So before she calls for help, she's actually just sitting there for the longest while, right? So at some point we hear Xander calling for Sarah. He's looking throughout the square for her, and Fiona just ups and leave the scene and go back in the car, right? I mean, Jesus, boy. So I'm like, when Xander finds Sarah, he's like, oh my gosh, who could have done this to you, right? So he immediately calls the ambulance for help, for her and all of that. So he's getting her to the hospital, and Fiona just left the scene. Like, I don't know. No wonder why Xander wants you back where you belong. Because look what you did. Because of your carelessness and your drinking. And then Sarah, I mean, I didn't wish this on you, but like, you brought this woman back into you and Xander's life, and she is just self-sabotaging. Look at her. But anyways, let's go on. So Marlena and John are at the pub. They're having some kind of meal or waiting on the meal to be done and all that. So she's glad to have him back, and he begins to talk about his time in Greece and going to Katerina's grave and making peace, right? So he feels some comfort with that, but he can never really feel all the way good for what he did to her and all that. So she's like, you're the best man I know, and don't beat up yourself, right? So at this point Leo comes in, right? So Leo is like, Dr. Evans, you changed your outfit. So she's like, huh? Yeah, you were in this colorful get up earlier. So she's like, I've been in this clothes the whole time. And he's like, oh, John is here. And she's like, yeah, he's been there. We just having a late dinner together. So he's like, oh, so because we were watching something earlier. And she's like, huh? So Marlene is just confused about all the events that happened with Leo, because Leo still thinks that it's still her, it's not Hattie. So he's like telling, John went up to go check if food is ready and all that. So he sits down and he's like, maybe you just don't want this to be known to your husband that you're parading with your patient and all of that. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. So she's really confused, and he's like, okay. So, John finds out that, they're closed and they just, leave. So she's like, nice to see you again, Leo. And Leo's like, oh, nice to see you again for the second time. So she's still confused. Like, she's like, what is that? Right. So at some point, Hattie comes in, right? So Hattie is like, hey, Lenny, nice to see you again. So he's like, you changed back in the outfit twice? So she's like, huh? So she's like, anyways, I'm gonna go, catch some sleep for the soap opera tomorrow, right? So he's like, you're gonna sleep here? So she's like, yeah, Roman was nice enough to rent me a room here. So he's still confused, like he don't know what is going on. Like, can this charade be over, guys? So we see the emergency that Kayla had to tend to, and it was Sarah, right? Because Sarah has been brought in. So Xander's there, and Xander's like, is she gonna be okay? So she's like, yes, just let me do what I have to do. You gotta step outside, right? So he's like, I love you, and Victoria loves you. You'll be fine, and all that. So she runs him out of there. So while that is going on, Fiona went back in the car with Brady, and she's like, I had to leave that scene. Xander got it under control. He'll make sure that his wife get the medical attention. I'm like, you just making this more messy for you and your son's relationship. It didn't even have a chance to heal yet, and you doing all this nonsense. So she drives Brady home, right? And at the same time, he's still out of it, really out of it. He drank a lot. And she got a phone call from Xander, because Xander's outside Sarah's hospital room. And he calls her like, Mom, I really need you right now. Sarah's been in an accident. I really need your support. So, oh boy, this is just messy. She's like, okay, I'm on my way, right? So Fiona makes it over there, and she's like, who would have done this? Even though, you know who did it, right? So anyway, she's like, who could have done this? And he's like, I don't know. But when the police get them, I will strangle them with my bare hands, right? So she's already feeling guilty about this. I don't know how long this is going to go on, but listen, it's not looking good for you, Fiona. Not at all. So remember I told you guys that Jack, had a phone call to make to Jennifer. So he told Jennifer that, the results were in, and that, Abigail is really Abigail, right? So that was it with them, right? Nothing to hold you guys on. So Marlena and John make it to their penthouse, and Marlena's like, Brady parked in my spot. So he's like, you want me to call him? She's like, no, it's late. It doesn't even matter at this point, right? So while this is happening, Brady is just passed out in that car, right? So it looked like Fiona just left him there and took a cab and went to the hospital. I don't know, but it's just a whole mess, guys. So we see Chad and the new Abigail come in, and he's like, I have the staff make 2 separate beds for us, so you should be comfortable here, right? So she begins to look at Stefano, and he's like, that picture is a lot less intimidating than he was in real life, right? So he begins to, go out and check on the rooms, and she's just there looking around the mansion. So she's like, I guess Abigail is home. So that's it, guys. I mean, it was a little bit underwhelming to find out that she's actually Abigail. I was really rooting for her to actually be somebody else, but I guess we gotta just work with her like the new Gabby, right? So let's see what happens tomorrow in an all new recap. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.